I'm overstimulated. Expect the long-awaited abolition of my brain.
But if mentally we synchronize, despite what we despise, there's a chance that maybe I won't go insane. Hi friends, welcome to Mental Sync.
Hey, welcome to Mental Sync. It's the only show. Oh, I didn't think of a tagline. It's the only show. That's all we got.
It's the only one.
It's the only show. All other shows, canceled, done, thrown out, scrapped, trashed.
And
This is the only show left.
For the foreseeable future too, we've decided that we don't know what we're talking about.
Nah,
so
on
we're
purpose,
gonna use on
which
purpose.
It's kind of like planning.
Yeah.
We're planning to have no plan. It's organized. It's great.
It's great. It's fun.
Yeah.
And that being said, we have our wonderful pickle
Our pickle wheel.
Our pickle wheel. Picker wheel.
Pull up the little pickle wheel.
And we're now going to pick the topic of this episode.
All right, video is below. Here we go. We're going to spin that wheel. Everyone on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Spin that wheel so that we know what topic Emily and John are going to talk about today on the podcast relating to mental health. Woo!
Oh, I love that I have my sound on. I didn't know it had a sound.
Yeah, that's a good one. It does have a sound, yeah. Getting tested. I liked that little sound.
Me too. I should keep the sound up every time.
That was a good one. Yeah.
It was. Getting tested. And we don't mean for STDs.
We sure don't.
We mean for ADHD.
ADHD. Wow.
All right. So,
all right.
friends, let's get into it.
Let's get up in it. Yeah.
So, I guess the best way to talk about this is to share my experience. About getting tested for ADHD.
Well, so first of all, I think something we should say is that you have been tested for ADHD. I have actually not been tested for ADHD, technically.
You should get on that.
I should get on that because maybe there's something to be said about, like, I shouldn't be saying I have ADHD without getting tested. However, medical professionals have laughed. When I was, my story's very quick, but when I was seeing my first really consistent therapist, I was saying to her, like, yeah, and, you know, I do think that there's, like, a touch of ADHD, and she definitely was, like, hiding a smile and was very, very polite, but was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I actually would like to say that I never thought that I had ADHD up until maybe, like, 9 months ago.
Really?
So, yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that.
Well, because I also
But I didn't know that.
So my little brother has ADD. Well, it's all ADHD, but I know a lot of people still don't know the difference. So I'll tell you the difference.
Yeah. What's the difference?
The difference is ADD is just attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
And then ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And basically,
aren't they kind of grouped more, like, nowadays? Aren't they?
Yeah, so I'm getting there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There.
I just have so much trouble focusing for whatever reason.
So, the reason why they all just fall under ADHD is because now it's like you have inattentive type ADHD, or you have ADHD, which it has that, like, hyperactivity aspect.
Yeah.
I have been blessed with both. And basically, the difference is
I've been blessed.
I have extreme modes of, this is unmedicated as well, of hyperactivity where I'm like, can't stop moving, and I'm constantly moving. Even when I'm having bouts of, like, inattentive ADHD, I'm, like, still sitting there, like, bouncing my leg, like, moving, playing with my hair, cracking my fingers, fidgeting. Like, I fidget all the time.
As you can see by me not sitting still. I
know. I feel like you can, like, look back on all of our episodes, and I sit there and I do this, like, swivel back and forth in my chair the entire time.
I'd love to make a compilation that's like, I don't technically know if I have ADHD, and then smash cut to all of the, like, tangible proof. With
that sound, the sound. Do you know what I'm talking about?
the song?
Yeah, but that there's a TikTok sound that, like, intensifies it. Like,
really? I haven't seen that.
But But anyway, I think that would be hilarious. We should do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But so when I'm having bouts of inattentive type ADHD, I have zero motivation. I can't focus on anything because I have no interest in focusing on anything, and I will stare into the black void that is my brain.
Yeah.
And think about everything.
Absolutely everything.
Like, literally everything. Like, everything all at once. Everything everywhere all at once.
Everywhere all at once. The movie is actually about ADHD.
Surprise.
Fucking might be.
It might be.
It really might be.
So, some of the things that... Well, okay, so I don't know if I made that clear or not, because I also just took my Adderall like an hour ago, so we're still working up to like the
All right.
probable dose of...
Yeah. I'm drinking my coffee, and so we're working our way up as well.
But... So, again, the hyperactivity can't sit still. Sometimes I talk 3,000 miles a minute. Other times I can't put together 5 words. And I've always really struggled in school to, like, sit still and, like, pay attention. I don't think I paid attention once during school. Don't ask me how I got where I am, because I genuinely don't know. I really don't. The reason that I started to realize that something else might have been going on is because I was in a very long period of inattentiveness. Like, I was not, like, paying attention to anything, retaining anything. I had zero motivation. And this was, like, months. And I couldn't... And I hate that it sounds like laziness, but it's not. Because I am constantly sitting, I would be like watching TV, and the entire time I'm watching TV, I'm yelling at myself in my brain, you gotta get up and you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you only have this much time left of the day, you have to get this done. If you don't get this done, you're not gonna get it done in time. You gotta get up and you gotta do this, and you gotta get up and do this, and I physically could not get up and get things done. Like, I mean, I have, like, a pretty chaotic space most of the time, but I do reset my space, like, every week, you know, like, we clean up. I was not cleaning. I was not, like, nothing. I could not, and it wasn't, like, a depressive, like, because this is what they constantly asked me at the beginning of, like, getting diagnosed, was like, oh, is it motivation, like, what's the point? And I'm like, no. It's motivation where I know what the point is, and I want to get it done, but I can't convince myself to get up from whatever I'm doing and get things done. And it happened, it was going on for about 6 months.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I really relate to that. I didn't know that was ADHD based. That's so... I hit my mic. That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so...
You're kind of blowing my brain up right now, because I'm kind of like, that's something I've also dealt with a lot, and I'm just like, yeah, it's depression. But it's not, like, sometimes it is, sure, but, like...
Yeah.
I think I'm very quick to equate it to depression, and, like, that's not like depression isn't having any effect on it, but, yeah, it's not, like, any logical reasoning or any, like, what's the point, or, like, oh, I don't want to do it. It's just having no motivation, but almost in an overstimulated way, like not having, like not wanting to sleep either. Yeah, like because sometimes it's like I don't. It's not that like, oh, I just want to sleep, or oh, I just like don't want to do anything. It's like I can't even do things that I like when I'm being lazy. You know, like I can't, like I get into modes where I like can't watch TV. Like TV's usually a pretty, like, shows are my go-to, like, and I think for most people is the case, but, like, just having stuff coming at me so that I can just, you know, feel like I'm doing something. But sometimes, I would even say, not often, but not too infrequently, I go into these, like, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm sorry. I'm like just kind of realizing this as we're talking about it.
This is literally what happened to me as I was getting diagnosed too, as I started to realize all the little things that led up to that point where I was like, wait, this has been like a whole life pattern. This is a whole
life thing. No. Yeah. Like you're like, oh yeah, this has been happening for months. And I'm like, only months. But I mean, you know, like not consistently all the time, but like sometimes I'll put on a show and then it'll be something that I'd like to pay attention to, like new shows. Sometimes I need to put on like a show that I've seen before, and then I just won't watch it. And I'll just, because if I have nothing on, I won't be on my phone. I'll just like sit there in silence from overstimulation almost.
And that's what, when I say like, you know, it was happening for months, what I mean is like, it just got really bad for months. Like I had, you know, that happens to me all the time. Like I have a daily struggle of like being motivated to get things done. But typically
you wouldn't know from your 17 businesses.
Typically, but those things bring me pleasure.
Yeah.
And those things bring me dopamine. And that's what, when you have ADHD, that's what's not there. Like that dopamine isn't like, it's just not being, I forget the exact terms for it, but I'm going to say absorbed at the moment because, again, still, what's happening, I'll read to you the scientific thing, because let's do that. That's better.
The science, the facts, no doubt.
ADHD brains have low levels of norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is linked arm in arm with dopamine. Dopamine is the thing that helps control the brain's reward and pleasure center. The ADHD brain has impaired activity in 4 functional regions of the brain: the frontal cortex, the limbic system, the basal ganglia, and the reticular activating system. And so your frontal cortex it controls your attention, executive function, and organization. Your limbic system, it's a little bit, so your frontal cortex is like here.
Yeah, in the front.
The limbic system is like in there, and it regulates your emotions
in the brain?
And attention. It's just like deeper in there is what I'm trying to say.
Got you. No, I know. I'm just fucking with you.
Your basal ganglia, if there's a deficiency there, it can cause interbrain communication and information to short circuit. That results in inattention or impulsivity. Reticular activating system. This is the major relay system among the many pathways that enter and leave the brain. A deficiency here can cause inattention, impulsivity, or hyperactivity.
Oh no, oh no, oh no.
So,
I don't know why I'm saying oh no as if I haven't thought that I've had ADHD, but I'm just kind of like,
So here's I think this will be easier for people to understand too, right? So let's break down like what happens in your frontal cortex for a second, which we have attention, executive function, and organization. And the thing about that is, one, with my ADHD brain, attention is, I struggle with attention if I'm not interested in it. So if it doesn't bring me pleasure or I'm not interested, I have a hard time paying attention. So one of those things for me is like reading comprehension. I've always been really, really terrible at reading comprehension.
Yeah, I'm really
because
bad at
it's
that.
boring.
Yep.
Boring to me.
Yep.
And then to retain information that has no, like, I have no interest in this. I have no reason to retain this. Like, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Executive function is like, I guess the best way, like one example of it, because there's a lot of different things that, you know, executive function is important for. But one of the things is time. Like estimating time, how much time it's going to take to do whatever, how far it is to get somewhere. Yep. So it was funny because during my ADHD exam, he was like, I worry about you and your estimation skills. And it's because like part of the exam is he gives you like, how tall do you think a skyscraper is? And you don't get
7
like
feet.
Well, you know what? I would be like 35 feet or like, I mean, stories. And he'd be like, and he wouldn't say anything. He was so good because he's not supposed to react because you're not supposed to know if you get it wrong or not until like later. Right. And it's just to see how well you estimate these things. And,
I guess probably like, actually I do know that I live in the city. It's like 60 or something.
It's like, it can be like 90 stories.
Yeah.
Because like, think about like the Empire State Building.
Yeah. If you're talking about, I mean, like,
We're talking skyscrapers.
we're talking skyscrapers.
Tall ass
Okay.
buildings.
Okay.
And then it would be like, how
No,
fast
I
does
know
an
a-
airplane travel?
Very.
I actually got that one right because remember when there used to be a Snapchat filter that would tell you how fast you were going? I was on a plane once and it told me we were going like...
Wait. Can I? Yeah, I just because I don't know for sure, but I remember one time I was on a plane and it was like, oh, do you want to check your speed? And its ground speed, it was saying like 245 miles an hour. Is that close?
Yeah, I think it was something like 347.
Sick.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
no, it's okay. So that's like something that I struggle with. Time management. I have a really hard time like understanding how long something's going to take me. I'll be like, yeah, I can do this in 20 minutes. And then 3 hours later, I'm like,
Yeah.
why did that take so long? I thought it was going to be easy.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. And then also like losing track of time. Like I'll sit down to do something and then 4 hours later I'm like, whoa, like, how did this happen to me? Yeah. So that's what executive functioning pretty much is. It also affects metacognition, which is like basically your ability to like adjust to something accordingly, like feedback accordingly. Or like if you have a hard...
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
I feel like it still has to do with like estimation, right? Like if I were to throw something at you and you had a delayed response catching it.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about like physical response time.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Or like even it could be just like if I were to give you even like, hey, I think that it would be better if we did X, Y, and Z because here's why, and then you had a hard time adjusting to that logic.
Interesting.
And
That's
it also is like if you have a hard time like evaluating your own performance, like how well you did on something. That's also like metacognition. And that also has to do with like flexibility, right? Like I struggle with like transitioning or like just change in general. So like if we were like, oh, we have to stop doing this right now. You have to get out of this brain and you have to start working on something else. That is very difficult for me. I'm like, but no, I want to finish this first before I move on to the next step. And the easiest way to relate this to something very like every day is if we're out to dinner and we get an appetizer, I can't eat my dinner if it comes before the appetizer's done.
Interesting.
I can't. I have to finish the appetizer first.
I don't think I'm quite the same way in that regard. I actually... That's very interesting. I actually
everybody's different. Like
this...
these are just little things, you know. And I don't struggle with all of the things I'm going to tell you about, like in executive functioning wise. But I'm just going to give like examples just for fun.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I just think it's interesting because most of the things you've talked about, I've been like, oh no, that's me.
Yeah.
But in terms of like task completion, and we've talked about this in like our organization, not focus episodes, but you know, just in like completing tasks, I really like to start 6 different tasks and then jump between them and finish them. And I don't know why I'm like that, but in a tangible example I can think of is I'm looking at my calendar here, and I've never really known why this is. But maybe it's because I like puzzles, but I don't. It's a whiteboard calendar, right? So I like erase it and rewrite all the numbers every month. And when I'm numbering it, I really like doing it out of order. I don't know why that is. I'll still do it in like that. I'll still do it in like a order, but it'll be like left to right rather than numerically. So I'll be like, so if I'm looking at my calendar now, I'll like do the edges. I'll be like, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to Saturday. And then going down 6, 13, 20, 27,
I've done that
7, 14, 21, 28,
so
8, 50. Like, I don't know
my
why.
comparison to that is I play bingo with Danielle's mom and Danielle, but I just like to say that I go with Nan because
because it's funny.
It is. It's for Nan. We go because Nan wanted us to go one time, and now we go every week, and I'm an avid gambler, but it's fine. But there's like when you're filling out like like they'll give you like wild numbers, right? So the first ball that comes out, if it ends in a 3, the wild number is anything that ends with 3, including 3. And most people just go down there like bingo, they go through one like whole bingo card and then the next card and then the next card, and they do that. And instead I go across the whole thing and then down looking for 3s, and I make this fun little like spiral. Or when I'm like filling out the free spaces on my card, I don't go 1 2 3 4 5. I'm like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and make patterns with it. Like yeah. Yep, so I can relate to that. But yeah, so then the other thing is struggling to over. So also I'd like to just state before I finish these are all skills that can be worked on. Like if you struggle with them, it's never like a permanent, you're never going to be able to do this. It's that maybe it's harder for you to get to a better place with it. So like one of the things is like
being born shorter doesn't mean you can't jump to a certain height, right?
Yes.
Anyways.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So struggling to overcome like setbacks is another one that for some reason I'm like, that doesn't bother me. Like if I get set back, I'm like, okay, how can I push harder? How can I get past this in a different way? But I definitely have to say that in the moment, if something sets me back, I get devastated at first. Like it takes me a hot minute to get out of it because I'm like, oh my God, I did all this work and now I have to start over. And I'm like, and I kind of get stuck, but then I can overcome it. Working memory is affected by executive function. So like forgetting steps and directions, or like if someone's telling you a story and you can't like put it in order, or you can't remember every part of the order. Poor reading comprehension for working memory. It's literally literally the worst thing ever. Like that gives me anxiety thinking about it.
It's tough.
Planning appropriately. So again, that's timing, like, but also planning, like completing long-term things. So like if it's something that has to take like a long time to get there and it's not like instantly done, that's difficult. I definitely struggle with that. Like when I started doing like my resin stuff and I realized I had to wait a day for it to dry to do the next step, I was like, I can't do this. Because I wanted it to be done and like completed.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
But what I've learned, and I'm sorry, but like just quickly, what I've learned about that is I learned to sit in that discomfort because I knew that like I wasn't going to be able to finish things in a day if I wanted them to be the quality that I was looking for out of them. So for me to be able to like step back and be like, I did all that I can tonight, it's done, was huge. So as much as like doing art and stuff is fun because I'm going to make money with it and it's like a fun creative outlet, it's also taught me a lot. Like it's actually taught me a lot about myself.
That's cool.
And I've been really like grateful for that because I've learned a ton about the way that I think about like the next steps and what I want to do with it and how I plan out what I'm going to make and like things like that. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I find that's very interesting. I find that like doing music has been a similar thing to me, where I'm like, because it's the same kind of thing where like I'm passionate about it. It's definitely more of a hobby than something I would want to do as a career, but also like, I don't know, I have that motivation in the moment. And then when I see the scope of like how many steps are ahead, I get a little like, no, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I want it to be done. And something that I've been getting very good at is, and I shouldn't say I've gotten very good at, but something I've started to understand a lot more. And this has really affected the way that that I write also, is being extremely present with my creative motivation and recognizing like, what is it right now that excites me about doing this? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do like, you know, if I'm making music or if I'm writing, do I have a cool idea for a bass line? Do I have a cool idea for like a rhythm? Is it lyrics? Am I feeling like, oh, like I've got these lyric ideas that I want to like write down? Or am I not feeling any of that? Not feeling like necessarily creative, but feeling like organizational. And then like being present in that and being like, oh, okay, I can organize this where like I'm gonna, you know, if I'm on, I don't know, GarageBand, I'll like color code, or if I'm on like Final Draft, I'll like organize or like on Google Docs, like organize my thoughts for a script and make it as organized as I can, because that's what I've found is like the way that I enter flow state is like when I'm doing an activity that's a little more like passive, that's when I get the other ideas and that's when I can jump to something else.
And it's funny because the next thing I was going to state for executive functioning is organization. And that could mean like with tasks, like how do I organize and prioritize tasks? That can be a struggle. That's a struggle for me, is what do I do first? Then what do I do? And then how do I get to there? And then also organization, like your space is disorganized, which if you saw my office, you'd be like, holy crap. But again, what I've learned about that is I've learned that I let it turn into a mess for a hot minute. And then I pick a day out of the week. And for me, my day is Sunday, just because I have the least going on Sundays. And I reset my space, which I'm happy it's Sunday because it brings me into the week in like a very clean, like organized place. But I've also learned to not let it bother me as much. Like it used to really bother me when all my stuff was like all over the place. But now I'm in a space where it's like, okay, I don't have time right now. It's not inhibiting what I'm doing, and I'll get there. And it's okay that it's a mess. It's okay to leave that out.
Hell yeah.
So that's been another thing that I've like really kind of like struggled with. And then the other thing that executive functioning, like that is a part of executive functioning, is emotional control. And some people with ADHD struggle to maintain friendships and relationships because of that. But then also you can have difficulty managing your anxieties or frustrations. And I have to say that when I definitely have a hard time controlling frustration. So when I'm frustrated, I have a hard time letting that go and like moving forward. But when I get frustrated with other tasks too, I have a hard time. I've been better because now I'm acknowledging all my faults. And also being on medication has helped me in those moments to critically think about what I'm feeling. Yeah. Which has been a huge plus, because when I do get frustrated now, I can be like, okay, like let's start over. And that's been really helpful. Yeah.
For me, that's been a mix of medication and meditation and meditation, of just being able to like the thought, like being able to just feel what's happening with your body, and being like, oh, I'm very tense. And like recognizing that immediately, because I think that's one of the biggest things is like when you kind of let your emotions get the best of you, it's because you are having a physical response, but you're so up in your head, you're not aware of the physical response. And I know there's a lot more science behind it than that, but like being aware of what is physically happening with your body. Like I've become so conscious recently of the fact that sometimes I just like stop breathing. Not like stop breathing, but I'm like holding my breath.
I do that,
and I'm
but
like, why is that?
I clench my jaw, and then all of a sudden I'll notice
like
that my jaw, like that I'm like my muscles hurt, or like my teeth start to hurt because I'm like biting down so terribly. Yeah, that's a big one for me.
Wild shit.
Then quickly I'll go through these and then we'll actually talk about testing. But response inhibition, which is like making impulsive decisions and purchases, I struggle with that like you do not believe. Like
can't relate to that.
I have to like, and this isn't, and people always joke about going to Target and Target tells you what you need. No. See, that is, every store tells me what I need. Yeah. I walk into any place and I'm like, I could use that, never touch it again. Oh my God. I buy so many like things that I don't need.
And beyond. I go in there and they're like, well, but wouldn't you rather have shelving for the inside of your toilet? And I'm like, yeah, I need that.
Yeah, no, example, today I was very proud of myself because again, and this is another thing that, the guy who diagnosed me, he told me to do, because again, I'm bad at estimating like the total cost of things, because what I'll do is I'll grab all this stuff and I'm like, oh, it won't be that expensive. Then they're like $284. And I'm like, how did I get to that much? And then I'm like thinking through it after. So he taught me like when I'm at the store and I pick something up to put that price in my mind and then to constantly just be adding up and like look like conscientiously like.
Yeah, sorry, I have a note on that actually.
But really, I'll just say quickly, this morning I was very good at it. I went to the pet store, and the pet store is so hard for me because what I want to do at the pet store is I want to buy cute bowls, and I want to buy yeah, well, that too. But I want to, like, buy new beds for my cats and new toys, and I shouldn't because I don't have the money to do that right now. So today I went in there, and I, like, looked at the cans of food that I normally buy, and I started adding them up, and I got to, like, $60, and I'm like, I don't even want to spend $60. So, like, I'm done, right?
You're
like,
done.
I got, I mean, I had to because I need to get enough food for, like, the next couple weeks, but...
But
it was helpful because then it stopped me from, like, actually... like purchasing more, because if I wasn't actively adding it up, I would have been like, oh, I can just, this is $4, this is $7, this is, you know.
None of those amounts of money are a lot.
Yeah, it's not. And then
well,
you
how
have
could this be a lot of money?
$200 worth of things.
Like,
so,
but I bought all the things that I bought were
like $1.
Were $1. Just because I bought 200 of those doesn't mean
it should be two. Yeah, nope. That I struggle with that like you would not believe.
When I was I wasn't always the raging success in the film industry that I now am. Back in the Connecticut days, in particular, having graduated college and being like, no, I'm not going to get like a bank job or office job. I'm going to like stick with this and do part-time, like, you know, worked at a movie theater and like was trying to pick up gigs. And when I was like freelancing and really like struggling, I was shopping at Aldi, which is great if you need to save money. And what I would do is I had like a counter app, and I would use that like when I went around, because I found it was so hard for me to estimate anything like what the total price was going to be. So I would grab something and I would always like round up and be like, oh, this is like $5.39, so $6, and would just go and, you know, that was so helpful for me because I was spending like $30 to $40 a week on groceries. Like, it was so helpful.
Yep, and then there's Victor, who can walk around a store, and he already remembers, like, the prices of things. So we could have a whole full cart of things, and he'll come over and he'll, like, add it up, and he'll be like, you know, you're at, like, $150. I'm like, what?
That's crazy. What? That's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's so good at that. I can't go to the grocery store alone. He won't let me. I'm not allowed to go to the grocery store alone.
I shouldn't be allowed either.
And my other thing
but I don't have a
significant
other to stop me.
is I buy 2 of, like, everything. I'm like, why not have 2? What if I run out of this? So that's
like oh, it's for next time, but then you bring it home, and then you're like, well, I have 2 of those. I'll have them both now.
Literally. But then the other thing for response inhibition is difficulty, like, pulling yourself away from activities, which is also relates back to, like, if I get stuck transitioning between tasks, like, oh, I have to finish this first. I have to do this first. But a bigger example that's a little bit more detrimental to my life is watching TV. I'll be like, one more episode. Or playing video games. Oh, one more round. Or I can just finish this quickly. And then 7 hours later, I'm like... Oh,
yeah. No, I do find that I need, like, a very clean break. Like, I need closure.
What I started doing was I just set timers now. Because when the timer goes off, it, like, pulls me away for a second because I have to turn the timer off. So I'm like, oh... And then I'm like, okay, I should stop, you know. It doesn't work all the time, but it does work. It's helped in the past.
Makes you I mean, that's what I do with social media. I have the time management things. Do I listen to them? Almost never. But it does make me aware every 15 minutes that I'm using it, and it definitely cuts down my time.
And that's what I struggle with at night, is I scroll, and I scroll, and I scroll, and I scroll.
And then you're like, oh, hours went by.
And then it's 3 a.m., and I'm like, cool, I have to be up in 2 hours.
Same.
Yep. Yeah. And then sustained attention, obviously. So, like, you get easily distracted by your own irrelevant thoughts.
What?
Or you get distracted by
way.
noises, or, you know.
Never. Dogs.
And then there's task initiation, and this is part of, like, the ADD, right? Like, procrastination, big one. Or you require several, like, prompts to begin a non-preferred task. So, like, John, go take out the garbage. And then you're like, yeah, I'll do it later. And then you just can't get up. John, go take out the garbage. John, go take out the garbage. John, can you go take out the garbage? And you're just like...
No.
And it takes, like, 30 of those to get... It takes 30 of those, or you're getting yelled at by someone. to like go do that. This is the last one because we had
Got it.
task initiation and then goal-directed persistence. So it says exhibit a pattern of incomplete projects and tasks, and then you don't follow through on promises. And I definitely, yeah. And you know what? I think my dad's going to listen to this and he's going to say, I can't believe she said this, but I think my dad has ADHD because my dad takes like forever to finish like household projects. He's going to be so mad I'm talking about this. But like, I always remember, like, so at one point my mom wanted to build a wall in between our, like, the front door, like, coming in and, like, our living room, because there used to be, like, an open space to walk through. And so my dad was like, yeah, I'll do it. And it took, like, 4 years. It got done and he did it, but it was just, like, for a long time, there were just, like, slats there. Like, you could walk through still, but there was, like, the building of the wall. And then it was, like, the wall was there, but he never painted over it. And then he never finished the top part. It just took forever.
Yeah. No, I really, really relate because I love starting projects and I love committing to projects. Mm-hmm. I mean, not actually, but I love saying that I'm going to commit to projects and making promises and, you know, because it does excite me and I do want to like do more projects and do more things. But then I think that comes back to the motivation thing where I just like lose it so quickly. And this is something I'm really trying to work on, especially as someone in the arts and who is not only doing creative projects for myself, but is trying to do like collaborate with others more. And it's really hard to collaborate with others when I know that I lose motivation so quickly. And it makes me so hesitant now to say, like, you know, especially as, like, usually in collaboration, I'm the writer, which is the first step. And I think I kind of, like, the pressure just really wrecks me. And I end up just, I don't know, whole other thing to talk about. But...
So so let's talk about testing.
What do you? What? Because so I haven't officially gotten tested, and that's for like, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say it's for any specific conscious reasons. I think money is probably the biggest one. Honestly, one of the big things about like hesitation to get tested, I'm sure with other people too, is convenience. Convenience in scheduling, finances, healthcare.
And I'd like to say too, like, I am very blessed with my health insurance because some health insurances don't do a good job of covering mental health services. I also work for a hospital, so my health insurance is like,
so it's up.
I mean, I could have a baby for free.
That's bananas.
Yeah. So
that's
like
awesome. And that's what it should be for everyone.
Right.
But it isn't.
And that's a whole nother tangent for another episode. But what I'd like to say is, the reason why I wanted to explain those symptoms is because that was really important as I was starting to talk to therapists about. I was like, I don't think I just have anxiety or depression. Like, there's something else going on because, again, like, I know the difference between being really anxious and depressed because of my anxiety and depression, but I also was experiencing something different, and I was like, something's not right. And I was really struggling with school. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. So anyway, I started to talk to a therapist, and she had like talked about, you know, I told her, cause she prompted it one day. She's like, have you ever been like tested for ADHD? And I was like, no, I've never thought to be, honestly, because I think the other problem with people who have ADHD like I do is that, and I think this like relates to you too, is if you're not struggling in school, do you have a problem? And unfortunately, that's
is there a problem to be solved?
Right. Like my parents, and this has nothing to do with them noticing anything at all, but like my parents both were like, well, she's like, they wouldn't have thought anything because I come home with good grades, you know, and I didn't know any different. Same. And it's just the way that I was functioning, right? I was getting by. I was lucky enough because my little brother is someone who has struggled with school. And so that prompted, why is he struggling, right? But if you're not showing that and it's not reflecting in like your grades, your parents might not know that something else is going on. And I always thought this is just the way that it is. Like, nobody has motivation for school. Like, the only classes I ever really had motivation for was science. Because I love science and music, like any sort of like orchestra. Yeah. Oh my God, I was 110% in, you know, while I was like in orchestra.
And then the other stuff that you have no motivation for is just, that's what everyone deals with.
Yeah,
and to, like,
some people don't like these things.
Like to an extent that is true. Like to an extent, like, you know, the idea that like people have a harder time doing things that they don't enjoy is not a super nuanced take.
Right.
But I agree where like it's come to my attention recently, like the degree to which our motivation, I think, is affected by... And I was even
going to bring up, to like solidify your point, is I was going to bring up, like, with science classes, I still was procrastinating. I was still having, it was just easier for me to retain the material and do better because it was interesting. Yeah. But like, we had one science teacher, the class that you left me in for like an entire year. And I talk about this all the time.
Completely ill.
Because the reason I talk about this specifically is because when I was getting tested and they kept asking me, oh, well, has this been something that's gone on your entire life? It brings me back to like this class specifically. We had these
my
packets.
Best friend in high school left me, and that's about when this started.
Yeah, right. No, it's like been a whole thing, but it brings me back to this class specifically because, again, it was something I was very interested in. I loved the teacher, but he'd give us these like packets to finish to like show our understanding of like the material. Yeah. And you'd have like a week to do them, and they were these long packets, and that was so boring. That was so boring to me. Yeah. And so I like wouldn't do it. And I'd like walk up to him with like an empty packet because he'd have you go to like the back of the room and he'd put in whether or not you did it for credit or whatever. Yeah. And he'd be like, I'll give you credit if you get this to me by the next class. And I'd be like, yeah. And then I'd do it. Okay, but like, thank you. it was because that work was boring, right? Like I enjoyed listening to him. I enjoyed what he talked about.
Not
I
only
enjoyed
boring,
watching everything,
but purposeless.
Yes. And like, it was very like, oh, like, I don't know. It was just it was awful. Yeah.
Because
like
there's
classes
a huge,
that were...
Sorry, I just real quick. I think there's a huge difference, at least for me, and I know for you, between work that is like not interesting, but you have to do, versus not interesting and you don't understand the point. Because if I know I have to do it, like it sucks and it's still hard to do, but I can get there. If I don't understand the point, I won't.
Right.
I
won't. And for me, I'm a hands-on learner, so like things like chemistry, when you're doing these lab experience, that's reinforcing everything I listened to. So for me, I did really well in like chemistry, because I was constantly like, yes. Plus, I mean, Spania was the best. Anyway. So anyway, when the way that this all worked to get tested is that therapist, she was like, have you ever been tested? Maybe I should refer you to someone who might like, you know, be able to help you. And she's like, maybe we should check to see if people think that your medication is the right thing too for what you're going through. Yeah. Because my PCP put me on my meds, not like a psychiatrist. He was like, here, I think, you know, granted, he did it when I was really like, it was prompted very well. Like I was really struggling with depression, and he was like, we're going to try something.
That's actually the same situation for me, I'm realizing.
Yeah.
Another episode.
Yeah, but so he put me on my meds, and they've worked fine. Like I've had a lot of relief from my meds, like especially with my depression and anxiety. But now that I'm presenting these really, really terrible, like even worse problems that are coming out because I'm overstimulated and there's so much going on, we needed to make sure it was the right thing. So I started talking to someone who was my official like medication provider, and they even said to me, we kind of want to get you tested for ADHD. And plus, once I shared that my brother has ADD, they were like, yeah, let's see what's going on. So anyway, what happens is they referred me to someone who performs the testing, and he's a neuro, what's his name? He went to Harvard. He's like really good. Wow. He's like a neuropsychologist or something like that, but he's also like a doctor. Like he has a doctor in like neuropsychology or some doctorate. I don't know, whatever. But he can prescribe meds, and he performs these tests. And he said to me, he's like, when you come into this, he's like, I don't want you to read anything about what these tests include. Like, don't prepare for it or anything. Just come into it with like a blank canvas. And he was like, I want
to do that. I think I'd have fun.
And at this point, I had already tried some medications for ADHD because I was really struggling, and they were like, let's try to like fix something, and then once you get a formal diagnosis, we'll know where we need to like cater to better, whatever. And so he was like, you can either take it on your medication and see just how you're doing at a baseline on this medication, or you could stop taking your medication for a couple of days, and we could test you at baseline. And that's what I really wanted to do, is because I wanted an accurate like this is what happens when I'm
Yeah.
not on medication and like focusing. And I have to tell you, when I started medication, even before the testing, it made a huge difference. Like I was on like something really low, like 5 milligrams of Adderall at first, and it was like a huge difference. And that's like nothing. That's like not a lot of Adderall.
That's not anything.
Granted, it only lasted like a week because once my body got used to it, we were like, well, we need more of that. But I mean, I started sleeping better. I started like
Interesting.
focusing. I started getting work done that I'd been putting off for like months. I started cleaning again, like on 5 milligrams. I was like, this is a miracle drug.
Yeah. That was me
so
with
anyway.
like 25 milligrams of Zoloft, and I was like,
I know, and that's not even the therapeutic
I
dose. They just
I
start
don't
you on that.
hate anything anymore.
I know, it's crazy. So yeah, so
Side
then
note, when I started taking Zoloft, I think the first like, I want to say like 5-6 months after I started taking Zoloft, I remember this for sure. I did not have one single bad day. Like bad things would happen. Like bad things,
But you
there would be days that were objectively like worse worse like things were happening, but I did not feel bad for like 5-6 months.
Yeah.
Top tier.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Great shit.
But so I was like, I stopped taking my meds and I went into this, and it was like a 4-hour long test. And at first he kind of gets a background and they ask you like, oh, how long have you experienced these symptoms? And you kind of self-report a lot of stuff. And, and as I was self-reporting things, cause a lot of it was like, well, when you were in like elementary school, did you have like these type of like symptoms, or like how were you acting at this time? And I was starting to realize like, no, this isn't like a past 6-month thing. This is a whole life thing. I've always done this. I've always had this
Very
issue.
interesting.
Definitely when I'm more stressed, it comes out. It's very like amplified, which is why I think I got into like that mode of like shutting down almost. For like 6 months is because I was so overwhelmed with everything that was going on and overstimulated, and just like, it was just too much. And I think it really brought out like my brain being like, we're not happy, dude. Like we are not in a good place. Like, you know? So anyway, so I self-report, and he's like, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to get like the formal testing done. He agreed that like I have enough. I checked off every box for both ADHD and like the inattentive type ADHD.
Yeah. Got a high score, baby.
No, literally, like it was like, I think I was like it's out of like, one of the things that allows you to get tested is you have to mark off like 6 of them, and I think I marked off 5 of 6.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so I go through the testing, and to me it was so fun because not only did I was excited to learn more about myself, but I also knew why we were performing certain tests because of my background in psychology.
Right.
So I was like, this is so cool. Like now I know why you're asking me this.
I want that too. I love that kind of shit.
Yeah, so like one of the things that you have to do is you have to draw this really complex figure. And it's about how you organize, like how you make a plan, even though you're drawing. Like there's a certain way that neurotypical people will draw it. And then most of the time, if you struggle with, which I was able to draw the whole figure, but he was like, you did it in such a strange order. I'm like, I don't know, I just got it done. Because what they do is they have you start drawing, and then he's like, okay, stop, show me where you're at. And then you hold it up, and he takes a picture of it, and then you put it back down, and then you continue, and then you hold it up at a different point. So he's watching your thought process as you're,
Very interesting. I think, I don't know, a big thing, like you were saying before, is not really knowing, not knowing the point, but not like what is going to be solved, what is going to be, because I'm not struggling I'm not currently struggling in school because I'm not in school, but I wasn't struggling in school. I'm not struggling in my career per se. Like, I want to work on my writing discipline, but in terms of like my day-to-day jobs, like, I don't know. I haven't found a very tangible problem that I want to be solved, but like you're saying, it just relates to so many other things, and it's just part of the journey of like learning more about yourself.
Right.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna actually finally get tested. And I think the other part of it is just I've always felt very confident that I have ADHD. Like for a long like since like middle school, I've just never really questioned that, to the point where like, I also know I have anxiety, and it also felt like getting tested for anxiety was just a way to like pay money to have someone be like, yep, sometimes you get nervous. And I'm
But
like,
it also helps with access to medications and
yeah,
access to better help.
and that's the thing is like there's definitely, and I hate this because I stand so strongly against this mindset, but there's definitely still a subconscious part of me that doesn't want to have to need it, you
Right.
know? And that's,
So
I mean, probably the
so
case for a lot of people.
so
I'm
what
gonna go
I'd
do
like
the
to
thing.
say to wrap up is,
Yeah.
one, we learned today that we should pet
What
all
we
the
learn?
dogs.
Yep.
And
Pet
then
all the dogs,
two,
get distracted, and pet all the other dogs.
yep. Two, we learned about symptoms of ADHD.
Sure did.
And we also learned about like why I got tested. So
Yeah.
and what my results were.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I learned
I'd
that
also
I
like to
should
say
look more
quickly,
into. I was just gonna
getting
say I learned
tested.
that I should look more into my healthcare and making sure that I can get tested without paying a buttload of money because
And I
it
do
might not cost that much.
I do want to say that, yeah, getting tested was a little bit scary. I was a little bit nervous about like what he was going to find. What if it's not ADHD? What if there's something else wrong with me?
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually a little bit of a fear of mine. Is like, what if I get tested and he's like, it's not ADHD? I'd be like, well,
What is
the
it?
fuck is
Yeah.
it?
But at the end of the day, if you're nervous about getting tested, my comment to you is that it's better to know and to be
Yeah.
able to help yourself than to not know,
Yeah.
and then to suffer. And
Because it's
honestly,
the case one way or another, whether you get
Right.
tested or not. It's the case.
yeah, and honestly, even if you like go and you get tested and it's not the case, at least you can say that's not it. What's next? And you can help that be like a building block for, how you can help yourself.
For sure.
And what I learned too in this experience is that everybody really that I like was here with, they had no judgment. They were just genuinely trying to help me. And the other thing, the guy, I forget what, I wish I remembered what he was a doctor, but I wish I could remember his exact thing. But the other thing he said to me is he's like, I also have ADHD. And he told me about the medications that he takes and that's been managing it really well. And he's like, so I completely understand, your frustration and why you're seeking help. And he even said that's why he got into what he does, is because he wanted to help people who were going through what I was going through, because he went through it and he wants to be able to provide people with answers so they can get medication and they can get accommodations at school. And it's been honestly like it's changed my life to have this testing done because I have answers and I now know exactly what I like have insufficiencies in. Like this is a 20-page report, by the way. So like that was just like the summary at the end. But now I know what I struggle with, and now I also have strategies and tactics to help myself strengthen those things. Because the other thing is that your brain is a muscle. And if you don't use it, and if you don't use certain parts of it,
gotta work it out.
Yeah, that's why it might be, difficult to do certain things. So if you can start practicing little things, you'll just strengthen that. And maybe you won't be perfect and you won't be as good as everybody else is at it, but at least you can increase your like power that you already have in there.
Yeah. Yeah,
and just
absolutely.
like it said in my report, like there's certain parts of my brain that I don't even utilize, but I've strengthened other parts because I'm compensating. And that's why he said in certain places in that little paragraph, he was like, well, I don't think it's underdeveloped. I just think it's underutilized. But she shows really strong abilities elsewhere because that's where you're trying to make up for what you're not using. So again, it might seem scary. It is a little intimidating. It's a long day. It's exhausting. It's a 4-hour exam. I literally took like a 6-hour nap and then woke up for 2 hours and then went to bed. Because again, you're using muscles in your brain you probably haven't used in a long time.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And then next thing I knew, I sent that over to my psychiatrist that are managing my medication, and they were able to help me get on the right dose. And I've been like functioning like I should have been functioning my entire life, like in a better way.
That's awesome.
For months now. And I've gotten so much done and I feel so much better.
Hell yeah.
And that's the point, is we're just trying to, if you feel like you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. Everybody needs help with something.
Yeah.
And you never know, it might just be really good for you at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So with that, thank you all for listening.
Thanks so much.
And we will see you next time.
See you next time
On
Mental Sync.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Cool. Okay, are we happy?